Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Basement Breakdown. This will be episode 2 of my MMA podcast. It's been about a week and a half since I filmed, so a lot's happened in that time. My predictions for the last card, which were actually not bad for my first go around. I went 7 for 10 on my predictions for the fights. Revised, I went 4 out of 5 for my methods of victory, how the fights would end. So all in all, not a bad card. It's been a huge week for sports. A lot's been overshadowed, I think, by the NBA. That Luka Doncic trade was something that blindsided me a lot. It was about 12:30 at night when I got wind of it, and I got a call from my brother, ran upstairs, and we're making a huge fuss, a lot of noise. My dad gets up, it's pretty late, to ask what's going on. But, we exclaimed to him that Luka got traded to the Lakers, and all was good. Fast forward, we have UFC 312. As I said, it would get overshadowed by the previous card, which in all was not a very eventful card. Adesanya versus Imavov was a little bit of a letdown. But yeah, we got UFC 312. I mean, all in all, it was a pretty predictable card. I wasn't really able to give my too many of my picks for this card, but I actually did quite well. Every single fight that I picked, I actually got right, besides the Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato fight. After the third round ended, I said it would end in a draw. And thank God we had good judging, and it did end in a draw. That way no one loses money. But, yeah, it was overall a pretty underwhelming card. The main event was underwhelming. Sean Strickland had staph infection going into the fight. I'm not really sure how much it affected him, but he looked tired, for sure. To the death, as he says now. And, we get 5 rounds of teeps. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I knew Dricus was going to win. It's really hard to go against someone when you really kind of have to find a reason for the other guy to win. And yeah, I mean, Sean Strickland, he didn't win a round. 45-50, he got his nose broken. And now this sets up the fight with Israel Adesanya perfectly. This is going to be a great rematch. So they get to do a fight night with Strickland and Adesanya now. Now we get to get Dricus versus Khamzat, which is going to be a good fight. And you know what? I think Dricus is going to give Khamzat a very good run for his money. I think it's going to be a good fight. We haven't seen Khamzat go past 3 rounds, and when he does, he gasses. Besides his last outing versus Whitaker, before that, he had a 3-rounder versus Usman. He gets a 10-8 in the first round, and then, I thought that fight should have been a draw, but Usman wins round 2 and 3, and, Khamzat looks a little tired. And Dricus, ever since he got his deviated septum fixed, he's got a gas tank on him, so it's really hard to bet against this guy. I kind of like him more now than Sean Strickland as a champion. He's really funny. In the press conference, what was that line? He's like, you fight, Sean says, you fight like you're on the short bus. And he's like, with that mustache, you look like you're the driver of the short bus. And with that mustache, I wouldn't let you around any kids either. And then the crowd goes crazy. And then Sean has to divert the attention to Tatiana Suarez, where he's like, she can't cook, but she can sure wrestle. Which she can, but I said Zhang Weili, and Zhang Weili won. Tatiana had a good first round, where I was a little bit worried, but besides that, Weili Zhang just smoked her. Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of an uneventful card. I think it sets up some good fights, but besides that, I think Weili Zhang now is going to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Unfortunately for us Canadians, I think they're going to do that for the May event in Canada. So, we're gonna get another women's title fight. I think last time it was we got Amanda Nunes versus whoever the hell she fought on short notice. And then, yeah, I mean, the Canada cards aren't great. But it's, that's what's going to happen. Justin Tafa got KO'd, which I knew would happen. Talish and Teixeira, I mean, this guy's tall as hell. And he's got a ground game, even though all it took was one elbow to the button of the nose, and then he was out. These Samoan dudes, I mean, besides like Mark Hunt and maybe Tai Tuivasa, they're not looking too good right now. Just because you're big and you're from a certain place in the world, it doesn't necessarily mean you should be the the third main fight on the main card. So yeah, Justin Tafa. I wonder if he'll still be in the UFC after this, or really who you give him after this. Because yeah, I mentioned Jimmy Crute, Jake Matthews. That was a good fight. Won every round, I believe. And then the rest of the card. Gabriel Santos was another pick of mine. Very happy with that. He started off the fight scaring me. And then as the fight progressed, he did better and better. So I'm really happy they gave him the decision. Tom Nolan was an underdog, which a lot of people, because of this card, there wasn't a lot of people that I guess maybe casual MMA fans or UFC fans would know. So, when people come to advice about, what to pick, a lot of the times you're looking at the best bang for your buck, and that would be the underdog in certain situations. Now, Tom Nolan, I knew this was going to be a good fight, which it was. It was a very good fight. Very technical. And yeah, Tom Nolan edged the decision, and he was the better fighter, which I thought would happen, which is great. And we got Wang Kong versus Bruno Brazil. I know a lot of people who bet on Bruno Brazil, and then I believe they parlayed that with a Colby Thickenese win, and that was a good return. Now, for me personally, Wang Kong is a great fighter. Her first fight out, she starches her opponent. Second fight, she's doing well until she isn't doing well. So this fight, I thought she would kind of return to her previous form, which she did. She absolutely whooped her ass, which is what I thought would happen. So, yeah. And then we got Colby Thickenese versus Topuria, Alexander Topuria, Ilya's older brother. I believe this guy was, he's been out of the fight game for a while. He gets his UFC, gets his first fight. I believe he was in prison for a little bit. He won the fight versus Colby. That was on short notice. Colby Thickenese is a good regional fighter who has an undefeated record. Volkanovski and Topuria were in each of the fighters' corners. It's really cool to see. Will Ilya and Volk fight again? I personally don't want to see it. Or at least I want to see them fight some other... Well, he fought Max, but I want to see Volk fight like a Diego Lopez before he gets back to a championship bout. And I think, honestly, they're heavily rumoring something with Magachev and Ilya, so who knows if that's going to be a fight. That would be kind of cool, considering Magachev doesn't want to go up and fight Bilal. And then if he goes to 185, Dricus, man, he's a big guy. That'd be a weird fight. Yeah, and then the rest of the card really was Cody Steele lost, a decision to Zurong. Jonathan McClaff, I pronounced that wrong. I think I missed that fight, actually. But the first fight, I think this is one of the only Indian dudes to be in the UFC. And yeah, that wasn't a good night for MMA in India, because this guy, Anshul Jubilee, got starched. Some people might say it was a early stoppage. To be fair, like when a guy falls down like that, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but this guy is going to need 2 to 3 years in Dagestan or something before he comes back and does anything. But yeah, so that was the card. All in all, it was a pretty uneventful card. It wasn't awful though. There were some good fights. Something I wanted to mention, which has been out for a while, and I just think it's absolutely hilarious. But a ton of other YouTubers, streamers, you've gotten wind of this. This is the GFL, the Geriatric Fighting League. No. But it is a new fighting league, and basically it's a team-based league, and it shares 50% of the revenue with the athletes. It prioritizes their health and wellness as well as their retirement. The problem with that is that, the guys who they're drafting into the actual federation are guys who have been through the absolute ringer. These are all guys who have fought, previously in the UFC or other organizations. So... as far as health, I don't think these guys should be fighting, some of them anymore, and I'll get to that in just a second. I believe the number 1 overall pick was Tyron Woodley. His last fight was against Jake Paul, so... Yoel Romero got signed, Phil Hawes, Chris Weidman, Hector Lombard, Uriah Hall, Shogun, oh my god, Alexander Gustafsson, Ovo St. Preux, Thiago Santos, Luke Rockhold, Gerard Masasi, Dylan Dennis, Gleepson Tebow. This is literally the graveyard of UFC fighters. It's just unbelievable. And some of these guys are in better health than the other, but than the in the ladder. But some of these guys, Glibson Tebow's 41. Like, he was fighting Khabib like a decade ago. Gerard Mousasi's 39. Sure, he got fucked over by the UFC a little bit. I don't see how this is going to be any second coming. Luke Rockhold beat, Joe Schilling last time in Karate Combat, and now he's here. Derek Brunson, I mean, I think he fought in the PFL maybe, and he won his first fight in the PFL, and this is his next thing. Yeah, Douglas Lima, Uriah Hall, this is just the backwash of MMA. I mean, some of these guys obviously are fucking, they were superstars in their own right, in their own time. But like Kevin Lee, Anthony Pettis, like Tony Ferguson signed with them, okay? Like, Tony Ferguson's on an 8-fight losing streak in the UFC. There are a few other guys who have that streak. There's BJ Penn, I think, and, oh, God. There's Sam Alvey, too, who freaking sucks, but he knows it. So, that's who we got in this GFL. It's really unbelievable. I have no idea. It's super shady and stuff. They had the draft, and then they like said that they weren't going to finalize the teams because of the draft, and they were going to move things around. I have no idea how this is going to go and who's going to get paid what, or if anyone's really going to watch this. I know I will because I like MMA, but yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty scary thing to see. I really wonder how it's all going to go down. But those cards are going to be stacked. I mean, like A through Z. I mean, you're probably going to know who's fighting on some of these cards. Does that mean it's going to be worth watching, though? That's something we're going to have to find out for ourselves. I'm very upset to say that a couple days ago, I mean, Dominic Cruz was supposed to make his return for his retirement fight, I believe, and it was against Rob Font. No, not I believe, it was his retirement fight, and that just got canceled. He's dislocated his shoulder twice, so he just retired and released a big statement about that. It's very upsetting. I kind of wanted to see him fight again. I really wish they would have made the matchup him versus Jose Aldo, which would have made perfect sense, and we're never going to get to see that fight now. Instead, that Mario Bautista-Jose Aldo fight still haunts me. I think they matched up Mario Bautista also against someone recently. I forget who he's fighting. Do I care? No. I think it's probably going to be... whatever. Brandon Moreno's fighting Steve Erceg, which, doesn't make too much sense to me. I think it's a great fight. They moved it from where it was originally supposed to be. So, I mean, I'm excited for that. That'll be a good fight. Brandon Royval versus Manuel Cape also got scrapped, which kind of sucks. So that's not going to happen as a title eliminator. I would really like to see that fight. Brandon Royval, I believe, pulled out. Yeah, that sucks. So we got a couple events that have actually fallen through. What else happened? Jarinzo Rosenstrike, after his performance against Sergey Pavlovich, he got cut from the UFC. Big boy. I'm sure we'll see him in another federation soon, whether that be the GFL or wherever, really. I don't know. Something funny I also thought I'd mention, which was what I was thinking about, was after the press conference from UFC, what they do is a fighters press conference where they bring out some random fighters, I guess, from the area. Sometimes they brought out Volk, Tai Tuivasa, and a couple other guys, and, the crowd asked them questions. And dude, Tai Tuivasa is looking fat. And he's not just looking fat, he's looking massive, like seriously unhealthy. Like when he sat on that stool, I believe he was testing that stool. I'm surprised that thing didn't collapse underneath him, but he is fat. And really all you have to do is look at that press conference and be like, whoa. For a guy on a five-fight losing streak, you'd think he'd be getting himself into better shape. But this brings me to my point, is I think personally we should get a Shamil Gaziev versus Tai Tuivasa fight. I'm sure other YouTube... I'm not sure, actually, if anyone said this, but I'm sure they've thought it and probably mentioned it. But yeah, we should get some blob-on-blob violence. Two of the fattest guys in the heavyweight division going at it. I'm pretty sure Shamil Gaziev wins that fight, but I mean, they're both kind of lingering at similar places in the rankings. I think it's a good last fight for Tai. I just want to see two guys, jiggle and throw their fucking hands at each other. So I think that's a great fight, That should be good. We got a Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong matchup coming soon, but before that, I want to quickly get to UFC, the Fight Night 251. Just mention a couple things. Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodrigues. I think this is going to be a banger. I really like RoboCop. Gregory Rodrigues. Jared Cannonier is a good fighter. I really like him. He's a guy who's he's been a heavyweight fighter. He's been a light heavyweight fighter. He's been a middleweight fighter. He's been all over the place as far as his weight. But he's also a great fighter. His last 2 fights, I believe, have come by way of decision and TKO. Yeah, so he loses to Cal Barallo, and he's doing well in that fight, I believe. He wins like 2 rounds until he gets stopped. That was an okay fight, which he was losing. And then there's the MMA fight, which some people think is, I think I mentioned this in my previous segment. Some people view it as controversial. I mean, maybe it was a bit of an early stoppage, but yeah. Jared Cannonier. He's fighting RoboCop. RoboCop's a finisher. He's a lot younger. It's going to be a good fight. What do I think is going to happen? I think Gregory Rodrigues isn't as talented as the other guys who he's fought and doesn't necessarily have the dimensions of the other guys he's fought, but he's a lot bigger than Jared Cannonier and younger. Man, honestly, I think Gregory Rodrigues is going to sleep him at some point. I think probably in the later rounds. Because Jared Cannonier is not a guy who really gets knocked out too early. I think he's probably going to get knocked out in the later rounds. I think Jared Cannonier's nearing the end of his UFC journey. So that's my opinion on what's going to happen. Sorry, guys. As you can see, we've added some amenities. I've got to put these up, but we got this McGregor versus Diaz 1 poster, which is nice. Over here, we have this Charles do Bronx poster, and I got some RDX MMA gloves because the UFC official ones were hella expensive. Calvin Kattar's fighting Youssef Zalal. Calvin Kattar's last fight was against Aljamain Sterling. I mean, Aljamain Sterling took him down for 3 rounds, which is exactly what we thought was going to happen. Now he's fighting Youssef Zalal. Youssef Zalal is a good fighter, man. And to be honest with you, his last couple fights, I haven't really bet against him. And he is very good on the ground. So it's a very interesting thing to see. Maybe it's to prove that he can fight a guy of that caliber. But yeah, Calvin Kattar is a boxer. And when you play UFC 4, 5, or really any game that he's in, it'll say right next to his avatar, boxer, because that's what he does. I think he's probably going to lose that fight to Youssef Zalal via decision or a submission. Moving down the card, Edmund Shabazian. He fought Gerard Michart. Was that his last fight? That was definitely his last fight. And he was getting he was fucking up Gerard Michart that fight until he wasn't, and Gerard Michart submitted him. I actually watched that fight live, and that was pretty crazy to watch. And I believe that fight won biggest comeback of the year. So yeah, that being said, Edmund goes up against Dylan Budka. I do know who this is. His last fight was against Andre Petrosky, which he lost, and then he loses to Cesar Almeida. I don't really think I need to spend too much time on this fight, but they're giving this to Edmund Shabazian so he can get back into the win column. I think he wins this fight. Plain and simple. Ironically, Andre Petrosky's on that card as well, but he is fighting Rodolfo Vieira, which is a different fight. Ismail Bonifim versus Nazim Sadykhov. I definitely butchered that. Yeah. Ismail won his last fight. I believe I watched that. Nazim, he goes to a decision with Borshev, who fought this, and he submits Terrence McKinney. The Black Wolf. I think I'm going to have to go with Ismail Bonfim for this fight. I think that he's fought better opponents. And I think... I don't know, though. No, I might have to take that back, actually. He hasn't fought better opponents. What am I saying? I'm going to go with Nazim. I think he gets him on the ground via decision. Rodolfo Vieira versus Andre Petrosky. This is a fight I would. My brain's telling me to go with Rodolfo. I think for some reason he might submit him. But Petrosky's not a bad fighter. Who was his last fight? Yeah, he wins against Budka, we were just talking about, and then Josh Friend. I think this is kind of a pick-em in a sense. Yeah. I'm going to go with Andre Petrosky. because I like him. And I think that he's gonna win a 29-28 decision over Rodolfo Vieira. Yeah, that's what I think is gonna happen. Connor Matthews versus Jose Delgado. A lot of these fights, to be honest with you, I might not go over all of them. Angela Hill's fighting Caitlin Souza. I thought Angela Hill won her last fight. Yeah, it's a decent card. Walter Walker, which is Johnny Walker's brother's fighting on the card as well. It's a fight night. Tune in. It'll be good. Yeah, we don't really have a break for UFC for a long time, which is cool. So you're going to have every weekend to watch fights, which will be great. And a lot of these cards are pretty nice, besides some of the pullouts and the cancelizations, like I've said. We got UFC 313 with Magomed Ankalaev coming up and Alex Pereira. I think Alex Pereira is also going to fight Dricus du Plessis after that whole... they have a bit of a rivalry. Dricus wants to fight him, but... yeah, he was in Sean's corner. He doesn't like Dricus. But yeah, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira is going to be a good fight. On that card's Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje, Joshua Van. That's a good card. We've got some good cards coming up, to be fair. This was going to be a special episode of my podcast, as I was going to have one of my friends on, Amir Hossein. He's my friend who I met at Blythe, and ever since we've been great friends. He's someone I work out with a lot, and we do powerlifting together. He is also awaiting his acceptance to med school, and we were going to discuss some articles that basically compare and contrast different types of training and how they affect performance in MMA. And some of the results that we found while reading these articles were pretty interesting, to say the least. Like, you'd kind of think that there'd be more of a difference in certain areas than there actually are, which is really cool. So that's something I definitely want to get talking about, because there's some really cool stuff to talk about. I'm also going to have my friend Zach on. When I started getting into UFC, I was kind of just picking up where it started. So I was kind of just watching the cards that were available to me. So I didn't really do a deep dive into history at that point. I wasn't very interested in looking at WEC, Pride, were all these federations where these guys were fighting before there was a UFC and where they came into. But I think it's going to be great to have my friend Zach on, because he's a good historian with that stuff. And I think we're going to do an episode where we talk about the heavyweight lineage, which would be cool, like the belt. Yeah, lots of that type of stuff, which will be cool to have. And I think that'll be fun for you guys to listen to as well. And I'm also interested to know in the comments what you guys think as far as fight predictions and stuff. If you guys have any, if you guys want to put in some input or share your thoughts on what you think is going to happen, I'd really love to hear what you think, because it helps me personally, because I like to hear it's fighting. You got to hear something from all different angles. Your opinion changes on stuff, and it's things can happen up until the last minute. But regardless, I want to hear what you guys think about these cards. So yeah, I'd really appreciate some feedback. Moving forward, I thought it would just be cool to mention, I'm living in Toronto, so the Raptors made a couple trades. We got James Wiseman, I believe. Yes, we did. The Warriors already failed to develop him, so I'm not really sure what we're going to do with that. We also got Brandon Ingram, who I'm a bit worried about, but he says he wants to stay in Toronto, which is good. We didn't give up much for him. At the first game, I believe he was on the sidelines squinting his eyes. I think he has been properly indoctrinated into the dispensaries in Toronto, and I think that's probably why he's here to stay. But he's cool to have on the team, which I like. I just thought I'd mention that because the trade deadline was huge, and we were all blindsided by some of those trades. De'Aaron Fox, Zach, crazy week for sports. There was also WWE was a big weekend for the Royal Rumble. I'm friends with a lot of people who are big fans of WWE, and to my knowledge and from what I saw, it was a bit of a letdown. Cody Rhodes did a good job with his fight, but overall, I didn't. John Cena losing. There was a lot to be desired, but yeah, a lot going on in sports. The Super Bowl, the Chiefs got their ass kicked. Every analyst I've watched 2 weeks up until the actual game were picking the Eagles, genuinely. So, I played it smart with what I bet, and luckily I won. But, yeah, that was interesting to say the least. Not a great Super Bowl, but, the The Eagles win, second time. Let's go. They're going to have their parade on Valentine's Day. That should be good. And yeah, big week for sports. I believe Luka will be playing with LeBron soon, so I'll be watching that. Dude, for the Mavericks, first game AD plays, he has a great 3 quarters, and then in the 4th quarter he leaves, and now he's going to be out for 3 weeks, I believe. Right now I'm glad to be a Lakers fan. But we don't have a center right now. Mark Williams, that trade got rescinded or whatever because he failed his physical. So we don't have a center. Never mind. I think we signed Dwight Howard, but I think he's been in the Philippines and he's been doing some stuff. So I'm not sure how acclimated he is to a NBA basketball court at this point. But yeah, until then we got Jackson Hayes and Christian Kolokolo. So we need some help for sure. Who really gives a shit about this anymore? But, you know, it's always going to be out in the open. Jake Paul. Yeah, so he was in extensive conversations with Canelo to have a fight, I guess. The validity, I'm not entirely sure of. But, like, from what I've seen, like, it seems like there were actual talks about it. But thank God Canelo didn't really entertain it because, yeah, it fell through. Now we got, you know, Jake posting on social media a bunch of shit, like calling him a pussy or whatever, a duck, and it's like, come on, man. We don't want to see you fight Canelo. Like, we don't want to see Canelo fight you. No one wants to watch that. He already has matchups for him. We want to see him fight Crawford, like, or something. Like, we don't want to see him fight Jake Paul. We want you to fight a real boxer. That sucks to see. And then I believe he was also rumored to fight his brother, but, like, whatever. Who cares? Yeah. To be fair, I wanted to mention, I believe they, who did they book? They booked Dubois versus Parker Porter, Parker, which will be a good fight. There's some good boxing fights actually coming up. I believe the Dmitriev Bivol card versus the Better Beef, their second fight, that's a stacked card. Because as far as boxing cards, I mean, it's kind of far and few where you get a bunch of guys that you want to watch on the same card. So what do we got on this card? Yeah, this is the card, and the fight I just mentioned on it. The main event is Better V versus Bivol 2. Then we got Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker fighting for the IBF heavyweight title. Shakur Stevenson's fighting Floyd Schofield. Carlos Adams versus Hamza Shiraz. Good fight as well. Vigo Ortiz versus Israel Madirmov. Big Bang Zhang versus Agit Kaabel. Yeah, maybe I need to brush up on my boxing a bit. And Joshua Bauti versus Callum Smith. I know who that is as well. Yeah, this is a cool card to watch. I suggest for those of you who like boxing, this is a really cool card to watch. This is February 22nd, so clear your calendars. What will that be competing with as far as 312? Yeah, that's the Henry Cejudo Song Yadong card. So, I mean, I'm going to have 2 screens on for that. And I'll be sweating double because I'm gonna have I'm gonna put a cheeky little bet on put some cheeky little bets on both the boxing card and the UFC card, of course. So my eyes will be glued to both. Yeah, I'm really excited for this next 2 months. There's a lot of combat. There's a lot of stuff coming up. So as far as being an MMA fan and a combat sports fan, there's a lot of stuff to watch, which is great. I'm really hoping these next couple episodes to really get a couple people on to get the conversation going, because I really like talking to you guys, and I'm really hoping to build a fan base off of, you know, like I want to be able to entertain you guys myself. It's good for me to be able to have these monologues and be able to talk about something for an extensive period while not rambling and not making any sense. So yeah, because, you know, a lot of these MMA streamers, these YouTubers, all these guys, Bedtime MMA, MMA Guru, these are the guys that I watch, the Weasel, whatever, whoever you watch. They're great, and these guys do it themselves, right? So they're kind of savants. Like, they're entertaining, and they're able to keep your attention for however long their episodes are and be by themselves. But I really want to bring in my friends because I think it's going to really create good conversation, and it's going to create for some good laughs and some good content. So I'm really happy to be sharing this with you guys. As I get more comfortable on the camera, I think you guys will kind of start to see more of what I'm hoping to get out of this. So yeah, this was my second episode of the Basement Breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and yeah, stay warm.